Welcome to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones, and together my wife and I will navigate the complex intersections of faith, identity, love, and resilience. In each episode, we'll share stories of heartbreak, healing, and hope from individuals who were told they didn't belong in the very spaces that shaped us. Okay, welcome back. We are excited to be here with you. Oh,
guest appearance.
This is our boy, Roosevelt. He's a snuggly boy.
Okay. Guess he wants to join for the whole episode.
Yeah, he's welcome to. We're about inclusion here. So we often get a lot of questions. I have a lot of my life, but we get a lot of questions around societal norms. For example, when we first got together, we would always, not always, but we would be asked a lot, who wears the pants in the relationship? And
who's the guy in the relationship?
Right, exactly.
Like, there isn't one. That's sort of the whole thing.
Right. And even though there's not a guy in the relationship, I think oftentimes people try to fit it into the societal norms, that box of like, there's a woman and there's a man. And if you think about it, all around us, these societal norms take place. Men's clothing and women's clothing. There's not anything in between that, but department stores, so on and so forth, right? And I think that I thought it would be cool just to kind of have an episode where we talked about this and talked about my own personal journey and figuring out where I belong in the midst of all of that, from clothing all the way to, I don't know, my own energy and perception of myself. So I think that would be kind of a cool thing to kind of chat through.
Yeah, I do too. I think a lot of people, like you said, get asked those questions. And I think oftentimes it's from a good place, right? They just are like, okay, so which one of you does this? And you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And it is really funny. But again, I don't think sometimes it does, but it doesn't always come from a negative place. It's just like they're trying so hard to fit it within the construct of their framework that's already been built after all these years. And they're like, so here's how it typically goes. Because Tami is more feminine, I often get the questions of more like, okay, for example, we go to a birthday party and it's like the girls are doing this and the boys are doing that. I can't tell you how often this actually happens in my life. And it's a great thing that I love my guy friends. But sometimes it happens in friend groups that I'm not as close to. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, which one do I go to? And oftentimes the girls don't even invite me. And then the boys also don't invite me, because I think sometimes they're thinking, if they're people that don't know us as well, I think they're thinking like that the other group would, because they also don't really know.
Right. Everyone's thinking like, oh, she doesn't want to sit here and have a gossip with us. But then the boys might be thinking like, oh, she's definitely not going to be interested in what we're talking about. Just kind of interesting.
Or whatever they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. No, obviously my closest friends, that's a very different story. And this is really in the realm of more heterosexual relationships.
Mm-hmm. And kind of when we start to get close with new people or we're spending a lot of time with new groups of people or whatever before you really get that level of comfortability. It's kind of like a song and dance of like, okay, what's happening? Or like girls' nights, like, are you coming? Are you not coming? Do you want to come? Do you not want to come?
Depends on the girls' night. So when I'm thinking back to my childhood, I remember Roosevelt, sit down, bud. I had my family nicknamed me Miss Congeniality. I think I was like 15, 16. And I'm trying to find like my own style. Of course, both my sisters are much more feminine presenting. I'm much more of a tomboy. And I struggled with that like my whole life. Like my mom would take me shopping and like she'd be like, okay, these shoes. And I'd be like, I hate those. Like it was usually always a fight because I didn't like it. I didn't like usually like what my options were. And there wasn't something in between, especially in the 90s. It was like, these are boys' clothes and these are girls' clothes. And that's your only, well, the only option was girls' clothes, but those were the only two options.
Even like toys, right? Like as a kid, I always think about that. Like you were at McDonald's and it's like girl's toy or boy's toy. I'm like, extra French fries? Like, why are you asking me this?
Yeah. But it caused a lot of shame for me because if I always usually I wanted the boys' toy, not because it was a boy's toy, but because I was more interested in whatever that was.
Yeah. Say like usually more fun.
Yeah. Still to this day. And it just happens to be, I don't call them boy toys anymore. They're just things I like. But yeah, it is interesting. It's like, well, okay, well, I like more boy things or, whatever it is, right? And trying to like find your way. So fast forward a little bit. And I remember this one day we were going to church and it was like one of my first experiences wearing heels, which is the reason I got the nickname Miss Congeniality is if you've seen the movie, you know that she's like a little rough around the edges, like a bit more tomboy. She's in the FBI. And then she has to join a pageant and become like very ladylike and all this different stuff. And she falls down in her heels quite a bit or whatever. So I remember I'm like walking into the church, and there's like a sidewalk and then there's like a grass little like knoll area and it's a hill. And yes, why I was walking there, I don't know, but I'm walking in and my heel hits just like the edge of the sidewalk, like where it, like it made me imbalanced. And I fell over and rolled down the hill in front of everyone at church. Yeah. And so, of course, I thought it was funny. I was a good sport about it. And my family obviously thought it was hilarious. My dad was like bent over laughing hysterically. Sure, and
or were you just mortified? I mean, you're thinking like, oh my God, this is the most embarrassing moment of my life. Or were you also like, yeah, this is hilarious?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, this is funny. I don't even want to be wearing these. And I'm trying like my best to fit in. And yeah, I was just like, oh my God, that's still, if I tried to wear heels, it'd probably be even worse now.
I would be calling the FBI.
If I was wearing heels? Yeah, you probably should.
Search and seizure would be coming over.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. Alert. But even speaking of that kind of just fast forwarding to our relationship. I mean, the first, like your styles change even since we've been together. Like I know kind of I don't want to say running joke, but the first wedding that we ever attended, you had like kind of a low cut jumpsuit and a heel on.
It was a wedge, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you looked fantastic. I love you in anything you wear, but it's just such a departure from, I can't imagine now if you were like, oh, what do you think about me wearing this? I would be like kind of confused.
Well, and this is why I wanted to talk about this because I don't know that this is the same for everybody, but I do think that a lot of people could relate to this. Because I had such internal homophobia, even if I wanted to wear else, it was like, I can't do that. I had so much internal homophobia that I'm really embarrassed to say this, but I would look at someone who was homosexual, especially in society, who was more masculine presenting, and I would have thoughts and even say out loud, I don't know why they do that. They're just trying to be a man. Or I don't know why they dress like that. They're just trying to be a dude. It clearly shows that they have some sort of thing that they need to be healed from. Now, of course, that's also the narrative of my family, and and the church, and not church in general. I don't want to make a blanket statement, the church that I have experienced. And even now, I'm 36 years old and have been out for quite some time, or many, many years. And I still have a little bit of a jolt of fear, like someone in my family is going to reach out and be like, yeah, see, that was true, that you do need to be healed from something. And to be fair, that's also because that just happened to me. Someone in my family did reach out. So to be honest, these, since the second podcast, these have been like pretty tough because just some of the things that were said, I try not to engage too much, but just some of the things that were said really took, quite a toll on my confidence. So when we were even thinking and planning about this, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about how I've like found my style or fitting into society and all of that different stuff, because they're going to find some way to like twist it and turn it around. But, yeah, no, I just, so, but yeah, I mean, I would look, like well-known gay people, on talk shows or whatever it was. And I'd be like, I don't like the way they look. And I remember being in therapy, like over a decade ago, and having to talk about that. Like, when I was first coming out, like, I don't want to, okay, well, maybe I can be in a gay relationship, but I don't want to do pride. And I don't want to change the way I look. I really hate it when someone comes out and then all of a sudden they start looking different. And now obviously that was like so much fear and just misunderstanding, misinformation, and just such deep rooted homophobia that it's like, I look at it now and I'm like, wow. And there would be these moments and these glimpses of what true acceptance and true inclusion and expression looked like. My therapist, this is many years ago, but she was like, you should read Carry On Warrior by Glennon Doyle. And it is a great book, still to this day. But there was this letter that she wrote, and her son at the time was like very, very young. I think he was like 5 years old or something. I don't remember his exact age. It was a letter that she wrote to him, like his future self. And it was this long letter pretty much like about love and how the love of Jesus really works, and how it didn't matter what any church told her, that both her and his dad would love him no matter what. And whatever flag that we have to fly, like we would do that for you. And I had a hard time even like finding a place in my framework for that. It's like, so you love your child and accept them and love that about them? I don't even know what to do with that. Like maybe you could get tolerated.
Yeah.
But to be wanted and is celebrated, like I was like, it took me a long time to get there. After that, I share that to say, I think in the first podcast, I shared about how like I'd be playing with my brothers, right? And I'd have on one of their blazers for church.
Yeah. For FBI.
For FBI. Yeah. I wasn't Miss Congeniality then. And I was like, ridiculed is a strong word, but it was like very clear to me as a child that wasn't okay. That wasn't the preferred look. So when that's embedded in you for so long and so many years, so I can't even tell you like how much work I've done in therapy of like, okay, so if you could go back and give your childhood self like a gift, like what would you have picked out? Like it's crazy, like the work that you have to like go back in and like redo and then connect like belonging and love to these like memories that you have. Part of that work has been specifically sneakers. I am a sneakerhead. I've always been a sneakerhead, but the sneakers that I would have wanted to wear when I was younger just probably were like would have been out of the boys section because all the girls were like pink. I'm like, I don't want to wear that.
Even still sometimes the colors. I'm like, why? Like, why can't I have a black pair?
Yeah.
It's really annoying.
Give me some neutrals.
Yeah.
So I like I've done a lot of work where it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? You can have those high top Nike Jordans in the black and white that you always wanted. And, now I have gone back also as part of my work. That's what I tell the credit card is part of my therapy work is.
That's what you tell the credit card?
Yeah. To make sure that I have the sneakers that I want at this point in my life because I deserve it. And, you can't really have too many.
The closet says otherwise, but I support your healing. Whatever you need. We all have our vices, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of like a little bit of the backstory of like, what's the inner workings of all this different stuff, right? We're talking about clothes and self-expression.
Yeah. I just want to go back a little bit and talk about that because like we touched on, I really never had that problem. I was like, yeah, give me the dress, give me the bow. Really at this point in my life, I don't wear dresses a lot, but I think that's just from a practicality standpoint.
But you love dresses.
Like, did I not shave my legs that day? Like it's, really that simple to be honest. But exactly. Like I love heels. I love to do all that stuff. So I never really had that conversation. So even I notice like with you when we go shopping and stuff, and it's been so fun to see this evolution of you over the past couple of years. And I think you have absolutely incredible style. And I think that you did at the beginning as well. But just noticing sometimes where, you know, you would like something, but you kind of would have a pause for like a big moment of pause. Like, oh, is this too, you know, is this too masculine, or is this too this or too that? And I'm like, you know, I remember that we had to have a couple conversations at the beginning because I felt like I could be a little, I think I was coming off brash where I wasn't meaning to be, but I'm like, it's literally a shirt. Like it's cute, or it's not, like put it in the car or move on. But I really didn't realize how deeply ingrained that is. And I think, I mean, do you think if that was something where your parents had kind of just let you wear whatever you want as a little kid, like, I mean, I feel like it would have turned out to be less of a big deal. It's like little kids play in dresses or jerseys or whatever. Like they don't really think anything of it. I mean, do you think that would have kind of lessened the burden on you?
Yes. Yeah. And I could wear what I wanted to out of the girls section.
So it was really like the labeling that was specific. Like they felt very like, we're going to this side of the store.
Yes. Yes. I do remember when I was a teenager, if I found something that I liked, I would wear only that. And there's like a running joke.
Yeah, the red shirt.
I had these red t-shirts, and I loved the color red when I was little. And I had a red t-shirt for every day of the week, which were like Jesus band t-shirts. So like that was fine, you know, if they were Jesus t-shirts, but they were all red. And so I had one for every day of the week. And over a 2-year period of time, they started going missing. Oh. Well, I think people got sick of the red shirts.
Sick of wearing it. It's just so interesting, those kind of constraints on self-expression and all of that. And I think also too, to kind of go back to your comment about thinking at the beginning, like, oh, you know, if someone dresses like this, they want to be a man, or they want, you know, whatever. I think that's really common. I've shared this with you before, that when I told my parents, like I was dating a woman, that kind of was the only comment, like, well, do they look like a woman? I'm like, well, yeah, like what? I'm like, what does a woman look like? The question. Yeah, exactly. Like women come in all types of presentations, and that's sort of the beautiful thing about it. But that was kind of the only holdup. And it's not that they wouldn't have supported in any way, but I think just kind of having that mindset or whatever, where you've not been exposed to a lot of people and you don't understand. And I remember thinking that's so interesting because I am much girlier than most people in my family. Like my mom, you're not catching her dead in a dress. I mean, she'll wear makeup at our wedding, but she's just like absolutely not wearing a dress. She's like a jeans and t-shirt. Like I'm prioritizing comfort. Like my hair's probably in a claw clip, like type of person. She's not super high maintenance or girly or anything. But then it still was like, oh, but you know, what type of lesbian are you going to be with? Like, is it someone who's also feminine? And you're like, it's just kind of, it's all so convoluted. I feel like it's almost like once sexuality comes into play, then all of a sudden everyone's hyper feminine or hyper masculine. Like we've kind of taken the middle road, which is really where most people fall completely out of it. And now it's like, you have to be one or the other. And it's like, it doesn't really make sense.
Well, because I think it does make sense if you think about it from a societal norm way, because the framework is you have a guy or you
in a
have
relationship.
a girl, right? And that's, I think, what your mom is asking. Like, does she look like a dude or does she look like a girl?
Right.
Because there's only those two options.
Right.
There's nothing else. There's no other option.
And it's like a woman in a man's shirt is still a woman. Like I really don't, you know, just because your outfit came from the men's department. Like if you choose to present and identify that way, it's not really, who's looking at how do you even know, first of all?
I know.
You know, like, okay, I'm kind of being like facetious. I know that you can really tell where clothes come from, but it's like, if someone's wearing a black t-shirt, like I'm not going to be like, I love your shirt. What side of the Target did you get it from?
Yeah. But that's because
like,
but that's never,
you know
which
what I
I
mean?
agree with you, but it hasn't been your experience.
Right.
Do you remember when I was like working on this in therapy? This is probably, wasn't long ago. It was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to H&M and I'm going to go to both sections. I'm going to go to both sections and just let it be whatever the shirt is. Like, it's not about where it's at. It's about like what it is that I like. And this is probably going to sound so crazy to people, but, I was by myself and I went to the lady section. Ladies, it's weird. The lady section. No, I went to the girl section and then I went over to the guy section And I was shopping and I was like going, looking at all those shirts and stuff. And this woman who was pushing a baby, like in a carrier, all she did was look at me. She probably didn't think anything in her brain, like nothing at all. And I look at her and immediately I'm like almost in a panic attack. And I'm like, the thoughts in my head are like, you don't belong in this section. What are you doing? How embarrassing for you. And you're trying to be something that you're not. And like, I mean, just like crazy. And like like automatically I'm like full of shame. And I don't know if you remember, but I didn't buy anything and I left the store and I was like, oh my God, like this really isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Why is this such a big deal? Why does this feel like so overwhelming? We're talking about a t-shirt, but that's the thing, right? Like we're not talking about a t-shirt, right? We're talking about the acceptance of, and in that case, that would be like my acceptance of myself.
Yeah. And I do want to just, before we move on, I want to say that, well, if you know me, which is probably most of you listening, then it's just kind of my personality, but I know I'm coming off very like, what the fuck is the problem? It's a shirt. And I'm not saying that obviously to you or to anyone who's doing that. I'm saying that as a counter argument to any parents in specific who are just kind of doing these things, or it's like you've taken something that is so not a big deal and just treated it so emphatically that then you've really caused, big layers of shame for people in the way they want to present and just about gender. I'm lucky that I can't wrap my head around it because I've not experienced it, but I just think it's important to say, my brashness is coming towards the counter argument and this is absolutely ridiculous that people let this happen.
People know that. I think that's pretty clear.
It's just important
to
say.
No, of course. I'm glad you did. Do you feel better?
Yeah, I do feel better.
Okay, good.
It's a fine line, right? When you've not, experienced those things, but I do feel kind of so passionately about it on your defense. Like you're always kind of towing a line, or I feel like I am of being supportive in a positive way. So
yeah. Well, and I think because of your support and your positivity, where I'm at, where I was at in my life, like I've been able to kind of find my own way. And it still comes up like each time that I go shopping or whatever, not the shame, but just like, what do I like? Where do I fit? Shoes are easy for me. So I navigate towards shoes.
Well, you're kind of like, like we talked about with dating, or I shared in the last episode, like, I felt like, in my mid-20s or whatever, I was like starting my dating experience all over again. You're really starting that with your self-expression, or you have been in the past, 5-10 years or whatever. It's not like you've been finding your style for 36 years. You just probably feel like you really found yourself in the past 10. So now you're just evolving, so I think that's going to take a lot of time. And I know I listen to a lot of podcasts where they talk about this as well, that special events are majorly triggering, I think, for a lot of people in the queer community, because it's like, okay, it's black tie. And you're like, it's pretty kind of specific options. Like if we're going to a black tie event, it's a tuxedo or it's a gown. Those are the only things that would be appropriate. And those are could be two extremes, if you haven't yet found where you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? In terms of weddings that we've attended or even our own, that was major, right?
Yeah. So like in the 2 years leading up to us getting married, I had found this like website that had both men and women's suits. And it was really cool. I ordered a suit and I remember wearing it for the first time at Sienna's wedding and being like, okay, how do I feel? Check in with yourself, like doing all the work. And I'm like,
and you looked great.
I'm like, okay, I feel cool. I feel like myself. So it's really just a matter of, will I feel any shame or will I feel any embarrassment? Will someone say something to me? And again, this is also being in an environment where like most everyone is straight. So I do think that's important to note. If I was like going with 100 queer people, I think I would be like, I could wear whatever I want and nobody would think anything. Right. So it's in those moments where you're like fitting into, like a very heterosexual environment, which is most of the environment.
Right.
So I remember going and I was like, yes, okay, I'm a badass. And I remember feeling really good. I had a couple of moments and I had like worked myself through it. And I'm like, yes, nope, I feel good. And so because I had been married before, we had like an elopement and I wore a dress for that. And
I've seen.
partly because that's just what you do. Like, what are my other options? Right. And I was still really in that place. And that relationship was really unhealthy as well. So for whatever reason, I think she had her own issues with it. And although she was very feminine presenting, she would say that she wanted me to be feminine presenting as well. And she would like push those things on me. Like she would push heels and push, you know, wearing those, like, I call them half a shirt, crop tops. And
I literally can't imagine like you coming down for date night and just cascading down the stairs in a crop top.
yeah, weird, right? It's weird. But that's because you know me in a way that I have like found myself. So that did not help me in any capacity. And so that was like my first thing. And so we were planning our wedding years and years later, I immediately panic on the inside. And I'm an internal processor. She is not. She's an external processor. So everything gets said out loud and you're like, do you need help with that? Or what?
I just want you to know.
Right.
Thought, you know?
Yes. But I'm like very internal. So like internally, I'm like, oh God, like I'm going to have to decide. Like, do I wear a suit? Do I wear a dress? And honestly, I never even thought I'm going to wear a dress. It was just more like, what the hell am I going to wear?
Right. It was never a thought to me. Like, we should go dress shopping together. Like, obviously I knew that was not happening.
No, I don't want to do that. So at that point, I've already had a couple of suits. I've worn it around. Like I'm practicing. Like, okay, yeah, this feels good. This feels like what I should have been wearing this whole time if I had just could have gotten over like the emotional aspect of it. So anyway, so I heard my friend had gotten married and he's like, you know, you should go to Indochino because they just released their women's line. And I was like, okay. So I could not fathom the thought of taking someone with me because I thought like, oh my God, if I get embarrassed, then at least I'll be by myself. If it's like a weird experience or I don't like it or I like whatever. And it was literally the coolest fucking thing. It is one of those memories that I'll have like the rest of my life. I went in and I had my appointment and they're like, oh, hey, how can we help you? And I'm like, you know, I'm here to get fitted for a tux. And this guy comes up and he's like, oh yeah, well, I would love to help you. And he was like, my husband and I got married 2 years ago and I had the tux and I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. It's someone from the queer community.
Yeah, like your guard kind of goes down a little bit. You're like, okay, when I start talking about my wife, situation, like the barriers can kind of come down.
100%. If you want like a boost of how you look, go sit with a gay man.
Yes,
they literally make you feel so good about yourself. So encouraging. So anyway, so I go and I have the experience and they're fitting me and he's like, well, do you want women's pants or men's pants? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, let's try on both. And so I ended up getting so nice. I got men's pants that were, because I liked the buckle. It's like silly, but I really liked it. So I got men's pants, got them fitted for myself, got a women's jacket, all the details that I wanted, our name engraved on the inside. I got, because I actually was able to get like this black suit that I wanted, I put like a purple paisley, like, what do you call it? Like the inside part of the jacket.
Okay, well, sorry to interrupt your story, honey, but I don't know what the fuck is going on with our lighting situation right now. This is, in fact, our first rodeo, so just turn the brightness up on your phone if you can't see us. Thank you so much for watching. Back at it.
So anyway, so annoyed. Like that's the experience that everyone should have. Like where you leave that feeling fantastic, that you look great, that you got exactly what you wanted, tailored to you. And whether you're getting a dress or a suit or a banana suit for all I fucking care, like wear what you want to wear, but you should feel good about yourself. And I can't wait to teach our kids that. It's like, it won't be, well, is it blue or is it this or is it that? What section is it from? Like, I'm never going to fucking ask them that ever.
Right.
It's going to be, what do you feel good in? What feels like you? And I mean, that would have been life-changing to like have lived my life that way. I'm so lucky and so blessed to be able to live my life that way now and work through minor issues.
And I just want to say that the tux was 200 out of 10. I mean,
it was. I'm not
jaw
even gonna
was
lie.
on the floor. I was absolutely speechless when I saw that.
It was sick. Like I felt so good. And I decided every detail on the suit. Like I felt so good. The day we got married, I was in my side of the suite, like getting ready. And I remember, I told you this after, like days later, I put my suit on and everyone in the room started cheering. And, oh God.
No.
And that's how humans should feel. That's the human experience that is so important for all of us. And I've never felt so good looking in my life. And I say good looking because I really love that word because it feels better to me than pretty or beautiful, although I do feel beautiful. But I just mean like good looking feels like my word. So it's like, you know what? Find yourself. Find what feels good to you. Find where you feel the most confident. Because every time that we get dressed in the morning and every time we go out in the world to express ourselves, we should feel like the people around us are cheering for us.
Yeah.
And that was like such a pivotal moment. I will never forget that. Never forget that.
No, you looked incredible. And you seemed so confident. I know we had, during the wedding planning, I mean, everyone's stressed, right? You're like, oh, I mean, I'm thinking like, oh, is she going to like my dress or is this? And I know we had kind of a moment planning where I was like, and maybe it was kind of even traditional thoughts in my own way that I didn't realize. I kind of really was pushing you to wear white for a while because I was like,
you
I
wanted me to have a white suit.
We had an all black wedding. All of our guests wore black. And I really wanted you to have the bridal experience. But as we got closer and stuff, I mean, you even helped me see like your experience as a bride, is not mine. It doesn't have to be, white and center of attention and fluffy this and fluffy that, in ways, I guess, that are more traditional. Like you get to decide what that looks like. And I think you really hit it out of the park, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you. And I didn't wear black because that's what grooms wear. I wore black because I fucking wanted to.
Yeah.
I wore I got this bow tie from Tom Ford that I've worn several times since, and it is so sexy and so sleek. And then I've worn the tux in like other ways with a different type of shirt or a cami or whatever. Yeah. This goes so much deeper beyond expression and how we physically look. But I think the most important thing is that whether on a Tuesday, if you want to wear a suit, do that. And on Wednesday, if you want to wear a dress, do that. And on a Thursday, if you want to wear a red t-shirt, then do that. I think for so many of us, we're so dictated by societal norms and this pressure, whether it's even like, maybe you didn't grow up like I grew up, but there are like these social norms all around us that create these pressures. And the whole goal in self-expression is to do and to dress and to express yourself in a way that feels authentic and genuine to you. And I'm just so sick of doing it any other way.
Yeah.
And when I see other people like in those circumstances, I just want to like pull them out of it and be like, when you learn to love yourself first, when you learn to love your way of expressing yourself in this world that's unique to you, that no one else can do, that's when other people are drawn in.
I love that, babe. How do you feel like that's translated into other new environments that you go in? We've talked about this when you get a new job or something like that. Obviously, you're aware or you feel like, you're not going to dress like most of the women in the office. Can you just talk a little bit about how you're getting more comfortable with that? Do you feel like these big events have kind of ripped the Band-Aid off? Is it something that you will just kind of struggle with in any new environment? I mean, can you kind of tell me how that is a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'll answer the last question first. No, I don't think it's something that I'll continue to struggle with my whole life, because the person that needed to be the most comfortable is me. Mm-hmm. I need to be the most
Amen.
comfortable in my own fucking skin, because I do think, right, there are homophobic people. There are people who, whether queer or not, that have something to say. Everybody always has something to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I also find that when you're in the world and you're looking for someone to say something, or you're expecting someone's going to say something, you'll find it.
Yeah.
But if your expectation is just that you're going to walk into a room and you're going to belong in the room, oftentimes I find that those are the moments I feel most comfortable. So it was more work that I had to do with myself. So I'll say when this most recent job that I've had, it's a fantastic company. I love them to death. I think the third time that I had met with them, I don't remember how I said it exactly, but I was just like, yeah. And my wife and I, and blah, 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 blah. That's a personal choice for me. But I just like, after all the things that I've been through, I cannot afford to live another moment in an environment that is not accepting of me, where I don't belong, or that will just be odd in general. And I don't even mean like we'll tolerate you. I mean, we'll celebrate you. I'm not fucking going into any environments or going to spend a lot of time in those types of environments, because I've already done that. I've been there. I'm not doing it again. Mm-hmm. And I deserve to live a life where I can be who I want to be. And so, and of course they were like, yeah. And I remember it was being like, and I was like, did they hear me?
You're like saying it again. You're like, why?
Yeah, I said it several times, and they were just like, yeah, that's awesome. And I was like, huh, okay. And honestly, that's turned out to be the experience. They are fantastic. They, like, everyone there is celebrated, and it's amazing. And so, yeah, I don't look like the other women or the other girls. But I've never walked into the office at any point and thought, oh man, someone's going to think I look too masculine, or someone's going to think this, or someone's going to think that. If anything, the owner of the company will come up to be like, I like your outfit.
I love that.
And it's like kind of
nice
quirky.
to be reassured,
Yeah. And I'll wear, like my dress pants and a blazer and then a pair of my Nike kicks or something. Yeah. Like, I'm just trying to like find my own path and my own way. And so that feels really good.
I love that.
I think prior to be honest, I was like overexposed to weddings and events where you have to,
you're welcome.
This girl, oh my God, you guys, when I started dating her,
you're welcome.
I'd say in the first 2 years that we were together, I went to more weddings than I have been in my whole life times 3. I was like, how do you know this many people? And it wasn't even like random people. It's like best friends where she's in the wedding.
Yeah. Everyone has obviously been so great. People are always complimenting your outfits and stuff. And I think a lot of that
because they're cool.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, of course. I think a lot of that speaks to community as well. And just, what you said a second ago, like you're not willing to go into a room where you're not accepted and celebrated. And we had that with our wedding. I mean, everyone there we had 85 people, 85 guests.
Yeah, now we were very particular.
Very selective. Everyone there is like so, so, so special to us. And it was so, we were so celebrated. Our love was celebrated, and us individually and all of that. But just having those boundaries, because I would imagine that it's really important that you have a safe circle around you, right? Because you're still, like I said, you're still figuring it out, and whether it's outfits or, it's a haircut, or whether it has something to do with the way you look or not, any kind of, way in which you're still discovering yourself, you need to have that layer of safety where, you're able to make mistakes. It's like, you're just safe to do that. And you're not feeling like, oh, if I take this risk, what are people going to think? I mean, launching the podcast, anything like that. Like, this is kind of another layer of self-discovery, I would imagine, for you. I'm learning something new every time that we do this. And just knowing that our circle and community of people are so safe that we are comfortable to take that risk with them, because, they've been nothing but supportive of us. So I'm glad that you found that, you really curated that for yourself during this process. And I think it's so fun to see you grow into yourself. I absolutely think you have such great taste. I think you're like the, just most attractive person I've ever seen in my life. But a lot of that comes from the confidence that I've seen you develop, really in kind of the space that you take up in the rooms that you're in. And I think that's really, really, really important for everyone to do. You deserve to be where you are. Everyone deserves to be where you are. And you should be the biggest person in there. Take up as much space as you want. That's your right. You get to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what belonging does.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't make you question. Of course you're supposed to be there. Of course you're meant to take up space. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. And yeah, my encouragement to all of you, queer or not, just be yourself. Like, find your authentic way. Whether that's blue or red or yellow or taupe or whatever it is.
If you wear all black, you don't ever have to worry about any colors going together.
I love wearing black. Just this way. Okay. Yeah. So, be yourself. That's what the world really needs, is people who are unapologetically themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we'll end with that and get yourself some kicks.